Good evening. In this session, we are discussing about Thomas Hobbes and Locke. Yeah, now who is Hobbes? Where he came from? In which period Thomas belongs to? At least we have to have the rough idea about the Hobbes. Hobbes it belongs to Britain. The period of 1580s आसपास के. We know the popular scholar Karl Marx. Marx used to call Hobbes as the father of all of us. Must all of us means is a philosopher. Us must there is noting as himself as a philosopher. Father of all philosophers known as Hobbes. What is the main concern of Hobbes? If you see the main concern of Hobbes, he majorly focused on security of life and the fear as the basis of authority of state. Why we are creating the state? According to the Hobbes, we are creating state because of fear. Because there is no guarantee for our security of life. For this reason, we are creating a state. Now, his beyond study school of thoughts, Hobbes is known as individualist, materialist, absolutist, utilitarian. Okay, these are school. Hobbes belongs to this. We are going to discuss in detail about the individualist, how he became individualist, how he became materialistic, how he became absolutist, how he became utilitarian. Okay, we are going to discuss everything in this session. The tradition of social contract. He is given the tradition of social contract. Even the Machiavellian is talking about the social contract. Okay, his criticism for every scholar automatically there will be criticism. Macpherson criticizes the Hobbes as he is a scholar of bourgeois class, as mother of his properties class. He is a scholar of possessive individualism. See how he has Hobbes has criticizing. He belongs to bourgeois class. Even Gandhi is also criticized as the bourgeois class belongs to. He belongs to Hobbes belongs to possessive individualism. Why we are Hobbes has given the state? Why he has given such a state? Because we are in the fear of say life. Now, why has given this theory? What is the reason? What is the beyond background of it? Hobbes has influenced from the Puritan Revolution, which happened in 1649 in Britain. It is anarchy in Britain at the time of 1649. In Britain, there is anarchy. The political factions are governed by the royalists and anti-royalists. The two forms one right now. Even the political parties has rivals. Now they are in political position. The rivals belong between royals and anti-royalists. And then there is also religion factions. They are Catholics and Protestants. The Machiavellian who kept religion under the state. He has given the absolute state. The Machiavellian has said that he kept the religion under the state. Okay. Now in Hobbes what have done Hobbes what has doing? Where he is picked in the religion in the state. Let's see. Hobbes like Machiavellian brings Hobbes has written a book Leviathan, which is banned by the church. This book is Leviathan is banned by the church. If church banned by the church means you understand that if the church has banned the book Leviathan, we come to a conclusion that he has something written about the against the church or something he's undermining the church. Machiavellian said that prince has to use religion. Okay, prince has to use religion, but a prince separated. He separated politics and religion. Machiavelli. But what happening in the Hobbes theory? And the Leviathan is a masterpiece of political philosophy and English literature. Hobbes, not only he is a philosopher, he is an English literature. After then he became a philosopher. But the methodology has tried by Hobbes to justify his theory. Now we are going to see this. This is he has given the scientific method, although we could not do so. He tried to introduce scientific method, but we didn't find any scientific method itself. He has inspired from the Galileo's concept of resolutive composite method. Galileo, we know the Galileo, he has given the resolute compositive method. This is scientific approach given. The Hall's main contribution is sovereignty. He has given the sovereignty of the state. He has given the views on liberty. According to the Hobbes, absence of law is leads to liberty. Okay. The state of nature is in all views the state of nature, absence of liberty leads to anarchy. Anarchy is the state of war. In the state of war, the life of the people's life is nasty, poor, brutish, and short. The state of nature, there is absence of liberty leads to absence of a state of nature, there is absence of liberty. Anarchy leads to state of war. State of war means there won't be any good life. The life of the people in the state of war is nasty, poor, brutish, and short. The resolution to composite matter says that there are particles. Okay, human are made up of particles according to the Hobbes. The Galileo has given the concept that in the physical sense, in the physics, we can say that if we consider the universe is not only belongs is combined of particles and formed the universe. The same the resolutive compositive method also. The particles whole matlab is utilitarian. It means the individualism and materialism combined in the form of the utilitarian. The utilitarian gives to pleasure. Pleasure comes from power. Okay. In state of nature, the state of war, the art, letter, navigation, industry, these are becomes nasty, poor, British, and short. There won't be, if we consider during the war period, there won't be art, there won't be letters, there won't be navigation possible, there won't be industrial development possible. The life becomes misery. What he has said that if you want security of life, what can we do? Hobbes is saying that transfer all your rights to state. Then state becomes sovereign. Hobbes is saying that transfer all your powers, your rights. We are giving our rights to the state as a social contract. Now what happened? Now the state becomes powerful. The power to state has power to make laws and even to punish whosoever not following the law. The law gives the command of sovereign. Okay. Now there is natural rights. We know that there is a natural rights or it's a reason comes for reason. Articles of peace is okay. What is the biggest fear? The biggest fear is death and security of life. How it can be safeguarded? By creating state. If we can create an absolute state, there is right to resist. Individualists are self-interested. Okay. If individuals are self-interested, they can change it in any time. If you say the example, we know that our prime minister has much more power. How if he has to arrive, the around him there should be a SPG, up to 12 members of SPG safeguarding the prime minister. They separate a flight for him. Okay, if a person has such a power we have given to him, automatically he able to use the power. Sometimes he may change also. Even Aristotle has said the same thing. Even a man of reason has desires, can be changed at any time. Okay, individual. If we keep power in the individualist, it's not the safest thing. We have to make a rule of law. We have to make a state. Hobbes is promoting police state. Okay, why he is promoting police state means he is more emphasizing on law and order. You have to live in police state, or you have only one chance. If you give options to a person, according to the Hobbes, he is giving two options. Particular one thing is either a person has to live in absolute monarchy or absolute state. Is by either, but with the middle path it won't happen. He has to be in anarchy, absence of law. There is mighty um, in the in the anarchy, absolute anarchy, might is right. Bigger fish eat smaller fishes. This happens in absolute state. The power is in the hands of state. No one has power. We have a doubt that if no one has power, what should we do? What you oh, what you are telling is we have fear of life. We are accepting it. But if we transfer all our powers to state, then what is our right to life? Who will guard us? We are going to discuss further. Hobbes' social contract is that his contract, matlab, we are signing a contract that is creating a constitution. If we take India as an example, our Indian constitution is signed by our grandfathers. It not mean that the whole country has signed it. We accepted as a representative in a representative democracy. We accepted if representatives are accepted on behalf of us. This happened in the Indian Constitution. We created a constitution, a contract document, which is a creation of people. In India, it is created by Constituent Assembly. He has given the two theories. One is mechanistic theory, another is organic theory. If you see the organic theory, it's given by Aristotle. State is if you see the organic theory, what is Aristotle saying? State is a natural. In state is natural. If state is a natural state, according to Aristotle, state is prior to the man. Okay, according to state is prior to the man. If you take the mechanistic view, it is given by Hobbes. For him, he is emphasizing more importance to the person, individual. State is a creation of man. It's not a creation of God, it's a creation of man. So man is prior to state. Okay, we are social in a social contract. We created a state. Means we created a state. Means we are prior to the state. That is justifying in this theory. These are all views of Hobbes. This is not my personal views at all. Now, Hobbes has given this. We have studied just before that. Hobbes has given the scientific method in political phenomena. What is the scientific method? In what which method he has applied? He has inspired the method of Galileo's resolutive composite method. He has applied the same method here. Now, what is saying? Man is made up of particles. State is in a motion till we are alive. What particle happens? It is moving. What in the universe happened? It is moving. What earth happens? It is moving. The same thing, the state of motion till we are moving. The particles also move. He is given the two external stimuluses. What is this? One, whether a person is hate by a thing or love by a thing. If someone likes apple, he is loving it. If someone don't like, um, I didn't getting the. If you compare even the fruit also. Oh, okay. If someone don't like onion, take it as example. Someone hates onion. Someone loves apple. There are external. These are external stimuluses. This will be happen. Now, according to we do that, we give preference to the pleasure. Which gives pleasure, we take it. Someone likes ice creams, he take it. It gives pleasure to him. If you get fever, someone will weak. He has to take medicine. It's a pain injections. It's a pain which we are avoiding. We won't do it. What gives us pleasure, we will do it. What gives us pain, we won't do it. The resolutive compositive method thoughts that particles, which man is utilitarian. If utilitarian means he is doing what he want to do, what he gives his pleasure, he is doing. What he gives pain, he won't do it. Means utilitarian is individualistic and materialistic. It is beyond his capacity to understand the planar pressure or within extra proportions. These particles, these are all beyond his capacity to understand. All men are women. Men means don't take as gender comparative here. We are for the sake we are considering men. All men are guided by the passion or appetite. There is no difference between men. Everyone is guided by the appetite. Appetite has a desire. Everyone has a desire. All guided by appetite. Opposite plateau. This has opposite plateau because all men are not guided by appetite. There are men who has wisdom. They are dominated or guided by reason. For example, our Gandhiji, we consider Mahatma Gandhi as a man of reason. We consider Buddha as a man of reason. They won't show the appetite. If we consider Vivekananda, man of reason, Mahavira, man of reason, Lord Rama, man of reason. Okay, the Prophet Muhammad, men of reason. These are all the persons men of reason. If he's taken the consider the theory of the plateaus, he says that he criticized the view of Hobbes. Now appetite dominates. What happened? All have reason, but what Hobbes is saying? Okay, I accepted that man has a reason, but 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 they couldn't control the appetite. They men can't able to control the desires. Okay, can't able to control the appetite. Now what happens? He is accepting that man has a reason, but he is not. But man is not able. The Plato is saying the man of copper. He has to send to production class. In social contract, he is given the discrimination of human nature. Hobbes has given this. How he is given in every person there is endless desire for power. We know it. For example, if a child, if we give him a chocolate, he wants another one, another one. If we give younger one, one, if a person has become, if we take it in politics, say a person has become MLA, he has the desire to minister. If he has a desire to he became minister, he wants cabinet minister. He then he wants chief minister. He then he wants to be a prime minister, and so on. Man's desire won't end. Every person there is endless of desire for power after power, which ceases only with his death. Until unless he achieved Mahaparinirvana, Nirvana, he won't be satisfied. The person's fear is also the same thing with his death also. The man wants to do things which gives him pleasure. There is a dilemma. In human nature, there is a dilemma that there are limited resources. The resources are limited. But there is no limit to the wants. The wants are unlimited. If you recall the environment also, he said that there is enough resources, but there is not enough resource for man's greed. This is the statement given by Gandhi. The Hobbes also saying that there are limited resources, but there are unlimited wants. Desire would give to rise to others. If a student is studying 10th class, if initially now he has to go to plus 2, he just to postgraduate. You continuously acquiring, fulfilling is one of it is the one. The power which gives us pleasure, so everyone will acquire, try to acquire. They are going to acquire the power, to acquire power. Other loses the same amount. Some game. There is always a zero sum game. If one gets a profit, another one has to bear the loss. Then only it will be zero sum game. If one person is source of insecurity, it is discomfort to others. For example, if you take the example during the War period, if you take the example, suddenly Pakistan has raised arms purchase. China has raised the arms period in a in an insecure dilemma because the hardcore neighborhood which acquiring weapons which makes a discomfort. Now we try to acquire the weapons. We started acquiring powers. Even the same thing happened in the World War II. Before World War, after World War One, Germany has started to acquiring the weapons. They couldn't understand that why Germany is acquiring the weapons. After that, the neighborhood becomes insecurity, and Germany started the war. It started invasions on the neighborhoods. There is due to this phenomena, the other neighboring countries also started purchasing the weapons. There is always a struggle for a power. If one person is if one person acquires like, become powerful, another become insecure, and it becomes discomfort. This is the human nature. Now we consider the state of nature. Still now we decide the human nature. If you see the human nature, what is a state of war? How state of nature is like a state of war of all against all. It's not for one to one. It's all against all. In the state of nature, there is no scope of. If the state of nature is a state of war, there won't be any scope for art, letter, navigation, and industry. We have studied before the statement. Now we are going to elaborate. We're going to give the explanation why the Hobbes has given that the state of war won't give the state of war in the state of war there won't be a scope for art, letter, ambition industry. Why is giving that? If in a state of war, the life of a man become nasty, poor, British, and short. You know it. If there is a hypothetical state, means the state is absent and man is left to live naturally according to human nature. If man is used to live according to human nature, there won't be a state. There won't be a social. Okay, the state of war is always all against all. Man is a utilitarian. He wants to seek the power because the power gives him pleasure. We know that there is a zero sum game. The person with the power is better positioned to gain pleasures. If you see that an IAS officer has more pleasure, why gains more pleasures than compared to an ordinary person, compared to a normal people. He exercises authority due to the source of insecurity for all. If someone is insecurity, it's insecurity for all. Why? Because man is fear of life. The biggest insecurity of life is fear that other person will kill. If there is no law and order, if there is no authority on a go, there is a fear that someone will come and kill us. It happened. It's happened. If you see, that means the difference between the man and the animal. In the animal world, there is always fight for survival and kill them. When no security, no question of good life. If we didn't have the even the right to life, how we thinking, how we dreaming of the good life, there is no scope of good life. So no scope of art, no scope of literature, no scope of navigation, no scope of industry. If they won't have these all, nasty, poor, and short. Hence, man would like to live such a state of nature and enter into a social contract which gives man security of life. But I question that, sir, we are giving all rights to the state. Then what is our right to life? Now we are going to question the right to life. We are not giving the right to life. If state is taking a right to life in arbitrary sense, we have absolute right to defend. Okay. Now, reason for a contract. What is the reason for a contract? The reason for contract is security of life. Man is utilitarian. State of nature is a state of pain. Would like to avoid pain. State of nature is state of what? State of what is state of pain. State of pain, man wants to avoid the pain. There is one famous statement about the Hobbes, which is I and fear were born together. Why he has given this statement? Because during the Hobbes, when he was during the Hobbes' birth, it had happened. His mother gave him premature birth. I mean, out of fear. A normal delivery time is 9 months. Hobbes has given before a month itself. It's a pretty mature period. Due to the out of a fear, that is the reason Hobbes. There is a similarity with the Machiavelli also. There is a link between the utilitarian nature and the fearful nature of a man. Afraid of losing the things give him pleasure. The biggest fear is fear of death. What is Hobbes saying that? Sir, a person, why a person fear about the death? Wait, what happened? Has given this is as the reason that a man is fear of death because enjoy the pleasure. He is in a fear that he is going to lose the pleasure which gives him. This is the reason man is fear of death. It's not. He is losing his pleasures. Life is a source of pleasure. Security of life. When there is no security, lavish, nasty, poor, in situation of pain, in self-preservation state is created. In the process of contract is everyone's come together. It's not from my estate, it's a contract with Allah. We all coming together and forming the state. I give all my rights up to the state of nature. If you give up all you of yours. A social means if it's a social contract creating a society, it's a political creates a state. There are terms and conditions. We have given our all rights to the state. Then what is then who will secure it? The state of nature is everybody was sovereign about in this the people transfer all rights to the state except the right to self-preservation, right to life, except right to life, they transfer all rights. It's a contract permanent. It's a social contract. It's a permanent contract. Now who is sovereign? Now the state has sovereign. Then what is the position of the man? The man becomes powerless. Man becomes automatically powerless. Now, what is the state doing? State now the role of state. See the role of state. Now the state provides the security of life. If man is a, we know that man is utilitarian, he is selfish. If he wants to take back the sovereignty, state has power to punish those who wants to take back the sovereignty. Because if one man, all of mankind cannot be thrown back into the state of anarchy. If one has exercising against the will of the state, how are we going to tolerate? The same thing happened by another man. If you continues like this, automatically the state, how the state becomes the state of anarchy. So to contain it, to constrain the state of anarchy, so man has two options. Either has to live absolute in absolute anarchy or he has to live in absolute state. The right to resist in the state, if he tries, if without a procedure established by law, if state has taken his right to life, he has a right to defend. Okay. Now we have learned that we given all our rights to the state. Now the state becomes sovereign. Theory of sovereignty of a state. Theory of sovereignty of a state. The sovereignty means supreme law making power. Who is supreme law making power? It is a state. If you take the medieval times, in medieval times, the supreme law making power is in the hands of church, centers of authority. It is not conducive to the capitalist because capitalists want the news for support of bourgeois. They want more nation state because it gives security. On the people in nation state, only the will of the state will prevail. There is no right to people. Okay. Man and Hobbes, what has done? We already said that Leviathan of the Hobbes has banned by the state. Man, Machiavelli, and Hobbes both put church under the authority of the state. They both undermined the authority of the church. This is why the Leviathan has banned it. The law is command of sovereign. In a particular territory, there cannot be more than one sovereign. Okay. If both has the same powers, then everyone can access it. There is a conflict between both. To avoid the conflict between these situations, he has given power to one only one state is a sovereign. Even the church has to follow the state. The power to make laws and power to punish both has given them because if only they may have making the laws, make the powers to make the laws, if violates, the who will take care of them? To secure this, he has even the power to punish the one who violates the law. Now the law has of three types. If you take the law as a three types, natural law, customary law, positive law. The natural law it belongs to use of a reason. The Socrates, the Plato, Plato uses reason. It's a natural law. The customary law, which is religious or customs, culture, it's a customary law. Positive law, which is made by the state, Hobbes has given the positive law, which is made by the state. Now, due of law is justice. Yeah, okay. What we have done, There is another statement by Hobbes that, okay, wait, I will share a story there. Now we know that our Election Commission of India has issue have during the time of elections, we have that model code of conduct (MCC). Model code of conduct. What happens? Election Commission exercise the power of model code of conduct. But the criticism of the model code of conduct is it didn't have legal backing. Legal Election Commission has no legal power to punish whosoever violate the model code of conduct. There is a debate that the Election Commission of India has to give the model code of conduct, but till it yet happened. Even this criticism is that the model code of conduct, which is given to the Election Commission, is as a toothless tiger. The same thing, if we are given the whole rights to the state, okay, we are giving our whole rights to the state. If we didn't give him power to punish, if didn't give power to punish up to the state, it's become also same the toothless tiger. He has given such a statement that covenant without force are nothing but words. A contract has given a legal contract, but it has didn't have punishment, but it's just a words. It don't have any value. Okay. In this, there is a debate positive law versus natural law. Natural law, it is peace or consequence of prudence. The state of nature, say the state of nature, natural law, reason need to be understand. Man has a reason only till self fulfillment. If man has self fulfillment, he act on the basis of reason. If man's life is in a threat, didn't have security of life, how are we going to get reason? Automatically, man's life become nasty, poor, brutish. In short, if you take the international law, in international law, lower income countries has no power. If you see the UNSC, Security Council, the gains of the economy in the world, which exercise the more power, which has more means. Power is a means to an end. Power is an even an end. Power is a means. They, if you consider the Israel-Palestine conflict, there is guiding by the support. The UNSC still couldn't take the decision because of there is conflict of power. Hobbes has given his views on rights. We already know the nature of state of nature, which is man had absolute rights. It means man is absolutely sovereign. No, sovereign means no authority to exercise on him. According to the Hobbes, without the state and society, rights carry no meaning. If the state, if there is no state, there is no society, then what is the purpose of rights? I have absolute right. What can I do? The state of nature, man has not rights but powers. Man has no rights but powers. What happened? Might is right. The powerful became power. The poor became poor. So man has to have rights. Hobbes belonged to the school of legal rights. On view of liberty, The liberty always in reference to the scope, authority. Liberty comes from authority. What is state of nature? Absolute liberty. In the state of nature, a man is sovereign. If man is sovereign, there is absolute liberty. Man wants to do what he wants to do. If he wants to do what he wants to do, there is no guarantee of the life. In anarchy, there is unrestricted liberty, absolute liberty. Man is, we know that man is a utilitarian, so he will choose security over liberty. For the Hobbes, security of life of a person is more important than liberty. If you take the liberty, is where law is silent. If you take the liberty, where is law is silent. According to the Hobbes, in a state there is no liberty. Liberty exists only absence of state, according to the Hobbes. Means state has absolute rights except right to self-preservation. It belongs to the person. The state, if the state becomes sovereign, it has power to make laws and even to punish those who disobey only by procedure established by law. Once sovereign exists, man no liberty. Sovereignty is there means there is no liberty on man, except where state has preferred not to make the laws. Where there is no law, there is absolute liberty on it. If you take an example, if you consider that there is no tax on, sorry, if there is no law to make um, something to make Maggie, there is no law. Man has absolute right to make the law. Maggie's. He make how much he wants because there is no law. This is liberty. Now, liberty or freedom. The freedom and liberty both are different terms. It's a different. Liberty or freedom signifies properly the absence of opposite to external impediments. There are two traditions. There is a negative liberty and positive liberty. That negative liberty is absence of law, absence of state, which gives uh, man is free only when there is absence of state. If you take a concept of positive liberty, it is the state gives certain limitations to the person to increase his capacity building. Means, okay, there is a concept. If you consider example of India, in India, we are following the positive liberty, concept of positive liberty. There is a freedom of speech and expression in Article 19 subclass A, okay, 19A subclass 1. The same thing in 19 subclass 2, Article 19 subclass 2, there are limited restrictions. Means there is no absolute liberty. We have freedom, but with limited restrictions. What is there is a difference between the capacity building and the liberty according to Hobbes. See how he is justifying that. Hobbes how he is justifying this. You are giving to liberty means who you are going to. There is an old man who can't able to walk. You are going liberty to him. A sick man, the old man or sick man has liberty, but he didn't have capacity to work. This internal impediment. Okay. For example, if you consider an example, if you take the water bottle, there is water inside the bottle. The water won't come out because the bottle is covered with a plastic or something. Plastic bottle is covered. Now inside the water there is external force acting, which keeps the water there itself. It won't come out of the bottle. If there is no surface of to the bottle, then the water flows out. This means the external impediment is seen as a restriction, absence there is a restriction, but inside there is a capacity. Okay, this is as liberty as external impediment, which is inside has a capacity, which has capacity but it can't flow it. The one we are going to liberty to the, he didn't have capacity but he has liberty. What to do? Means so if you consider a negative liberty, there is absence of law, there is no rights. We are given the liberty. What will he do with it? State is like an external impediment holding our liberty. So liberty signifies absence of external impediments. Liberty is where there is law is silent. Okay, you get my point. Now, types of state recommended by hobbes. We have seen the what human nature, how we recommended, the law, how is recommended, sovereignty, how we recommended. Now we are going to discuss the types of state recommended by hobbes. How is recommended types of state? The hobbes proposes a police state. What he proposes a police state. What is the police state? What is the duty of the police? The function of the state is to establish law and order. The function of state is to establish law and order. There are other type of state which is welfare state. In welfare state it gives the additional capacity to rights to build a capacity. For example, India, it's a welfare state. Then what a capitalist prefers? If you consider America, the capitalist prefers police state and a minimal state. The state has to be minimal. Now we are also following the same concept that minimum government and maximum governance. It is nothing but the minimal state and maximum output. Now, the critics has given that evaluation of Hobbes, how we evaluate it. There is a person before Hobbes who given this theory of sovereign. What says John Bodin? John Bodin says he is the first person to stand at the gates of modernity, but how John Bodin stands, if you consider it is as a gate, he stands in front of a gate. It's a gate of modernity. He stands here to stand at the gates of modernity. But Hobbes was the first person who jumped through the gates. Bodin stopped at the modern of the gates. Hobbes jumped at the gates. If you consider Machiavelli, the nation state, but there is no sovereignty. He didn't talk about the sovereignty. Nation state. Machiavelli talks about the nation state, the prince, but he didn't talk about the sovereignty. Okay, the prince has to be under the law. The Bodin was the first figure of the sovereignty in the secular spheres. If you consider the Bodin, what has is differentiated between the sovereignty, the secular spheres, means the one who is secular religious. If we consider the sphere of the political sphere, in the political sphere, the prince will be the supreme. When it comes to the religious sphere, the church was the supreme. Is incomplete sovereignty. The body in which he has segregated, separated the spheres of sovereignties. But the one who Machiavelli and also the one who the hopes is kept the state, even the religion under the state. Now the whole limitations are removed by the Fox. The state supreme is all state. If the church cannot claim the exception at all, this is the reason the church has banned this Leviathan. This is the reason that we call the Hobbes the first version of the complete theory of state of sovereignty, the scientific approach for the study of politics. Now we consider that Hobbes as the greatest of all individualists. Why we are saying that Hobbes is greatest of all individualists? There is a reason. There is a reason. We see that man is a utilitarian, he is an individualist, he is a materialist. Now, why we are saying the greatest of all individualists? What happened is the Hobbes wants to prove that he is individualist, but ultimately, what happened? He is a ultimately the conclusion has arrived something else. He became an absolutist rather than individualist. There is an individual school of thought where primarily the self-interest over the interest of the society. Man is prior to state. Okay, it has the roots from the Sophism itself, but this concept is much more dominant in the modern times. If you see the hope of two individualist senses, there are two types. One, there is a methodological individualist, there is normative individualist. The one methodological individualist, he built his political theory on the nature of the man. Since man is extremely individualist, only an absolute state can ensure security of life. The methodology, what she has been, the resolutive composite methodology has given, which is saying that man is a self-interested. He has appetite, more dominance of appetite. Then absolutely, automatically to secure his life, he's given his whole rights to the state. Now the state has the absolute right, which ensures the security of life. There is another method of which is normative method. What is saying in normative method? As he does not consider that the individualist is as a sin, it is a natural fact. If he does not consider that being individualist, no, you are individualist, you are in wrong direction. No, sir, I am not in wrong direction. If we do not consider, but we should also we don't want to consider that earth around revolves around the sun. How much is a fact that we are believing that X revolves around the sun? The same is a fact that man will be an individualist. He uses the resultant composition method, which movement of particles to explain the utilitarian nature. That this is the reason he called as being an individualist. He even removed guilt being an individualist. He creates an absolute state, still continues to exist, but the state for protection of individual. He created absolute state. Purpose of absolute state to give the protection to the individual. Even after creating absolute state, right he gives the right to resist to the person, which takes him to the in our which state can't take life in arbitrary manner. So he is individualist as well as absolute at the same time. The Hope starts as an individual but ends as an absolutist. He is individualist in his assumptions. What he is saying that we are creating state, we are saying a state is giving a security to us. He is focusing more on this, but didn't as he assumed that we are what I am doing is only for the individuals. But ultimately the reason he has created the absolute state. In conclusion, these absolute state called by John Locke and Whitehall. The state will become all powerful interfere the pulsar sphere itself. She criticized them. If we give absolute power to state, even the man has to be run by the state.
even his thoughts has to be decided by the state itself. Someone calls it Leviathan. It's banned by the church. The Leviathan is fruitless as a book of history and useless as a book of political philosophy. Leviathan is a statement. The Leviathan is fruitless as a book of history and useless as a book of political philosophy. Because of controversial of these Leviathans is banned by the church, burnt by the Oxford. It is even called the tadpole full of poison. It's called the Leviathan as a tadpole is full of poison. Hogan, contemporary Hobbes declared the social contract is a hypothetical concept. There is no proof in history. But the Leviathan not meant to give an anthropological accounts of the origin of states. The how is it's not a proof to give anthropological proof to give the arguments about whether to believe the state is has logical explanations to for creating a sovereign state. If you consider the Karl Marx as said that he is a Hobbes is the greatest philosopher scholars. Even he is called as the father of all of philosophy. Leviathan is indisable to understand the principle and practice of modern nation theory. It's not justified to say that Leviathan is a fruitless. It has relevance. Still now we are following because Hobbes rightly pointed out man is selfish, even a self-preservation. But it's not a right way to say that have to give all rights to the state because he's experienced he is influenced by the proletarian revolution. Due to this, he has said that he is more emphasized on the security of a man instead of liberty. More emphasis security of man more than now. If you consider concept of John Locke, consider the concept of John Locke. What's John Locke is saying that from where he has John Locke came, which from which influences who is influences Locke. The Locke also belongs to the period of 1630s itself. There are co-period between the Hobbes and the Locke. If you consider the John Locke, he is regarded as the father of liberalism because he is giving more emphasis to the liberty rather than security. Hobbes for security and is given sovereignty, but the law emphasizes which has more preference to the liberty. He is called as father of liberalism. Even the critics called as a scholar of bourgeois class, the scholar of possessive individualism. He also talks about individualism of John Locke also. He is also came from the Britain, but Hobbes influenced the film Puritan Revolution of Britain, but John Locke influences from Glorious Revolution of Britain. Glorious Revolution of Britain. Bloodless Revolution. Glorious Revolution is a bloodless revolution. So, from this influences, we can assume that Locke's view will be softer rather than Hobbes' view. Locke has a certain consensus that overcoming some inconvenience as a basis for authority of a state. A state has to A man has certain inconveniences which has to be overcome by the state. This is why he has considered created the state. We know he has stated that he has a possessive individualism. He criticizes the philosophy of propertied class. Whatever one possesses is solely because of his efforts. What he is saying that possessive individualism, it's a philosophy of propertied class. According to the laws, whatever so possessed by a person is solely belongs to his efforts. There is no role of society. There is no obligation to pay back to the society. Matlab, there is no need to pay the GST. Utilitarian. Utility of an object you give as pleasure. He is also utilitarian. Hobbes also utilitarian. The Cabalian is utilitarian. Tradition of social contract. He is also given the tradition of social contracts. Hobbes has given the if Hobbes has given one contract, but Locke Hobbes ये दिए थे ठीक है हम दो it's not हम दो हमारे दो it's a contract which has given the Locke. He has given the two contracts, two treaties. He has signed two treaties, which is on civil government. One treaty is belongs to civil government. Another treaty is belongs to Philimers. We are going to study it now. There is a common sense that he has used the common sense. The biggest contribution is natural laws. Because of presence of natural law, man enjoys the natural rights. In natural law, according to the law, what happens is man has a reason. The first trait is a film, the second trait is social contract. There is a theory of right, there is a theory of tolerance, there is a theory of revolution. He has given the three theories on rights, on revolution, on tolerance. Okay, according to the Locke, state has to be right was state. It's a minimal. According to the Hobbes, state is a police state. Here the state is night workers. The natural law is the reason that there is due process of law. State of nature is state of peace, goodwill, and mutual assistance. It gives us life, liberty, property. Hobbes is giving whole rights to the state except right to life, but Locke is consider giving three rights or three absolute rights to the persons themselves, which is right to life, right to liberty, right to property. State can't take out right to life. State can't take out even the state can't make laws on right to liberty. Even the state can't make laws on right to property is absolute right. There is inconveniences. What are inconveniences? Authority and assurance of goodwill. If there is absence of state, there is no guaranteed that men will behave according to the men of reason. According to the law, he is considering state as a trust. If it is a trust, the people are trustees. There is a due process of law. In the house, there is a procedure established by law because law state makes all the laws. There is a concept of due process of law, which is we seen that if the law is a fair, reasonable, and just or not. There is a right to revolt. If he has taken the three properties, there is a right to revolt. But revolution should not be a non-violent revolution. If you see in the first treaty, it was criticized. He has criticized the Filmus Patriarcha. In Filmus Patriarcha, What happens in previous patriarch? He justifies the absolute state on divine right of king, Adam received from king. He criticized the social contract theory. Filmer criticized the social contract theory. Why he criticized, for example, God has given the right to Adam of a property. Now Adam has to give the right of property to the descendants. Whom he is going to give? Is there an assurance? What if future generation don't want absolute? What happens? This is a rebuttal of law. Proves that the power we were transferred. Proof कहाँ था? कैसा करेंगे? Who are the descendants? How can we find? It's an irrational thing that adult man will transfer their rights to state. Adult man can't able to transfer his rights. This is the reason his father of liberalism. Even the capitalists want initially the support of monarchies. Once established a law and order, then started demanding the limited police state. They established law and order. Now they are limiting the police state. So night watchman state. The second treaty is the first treaty of the Philemons, which has criticized the social contract because there is no way guarantee that a man is going to accept to transfer his rights to the state. The second treaty is a social contract given the law key. He has given the description of human nature. In the human nature, in a man, reason guides. Reason in a man guides him not to harm the others of his life, liberty, position. Why? Because if we harmed the life or liberty or property of other person, the same can be reflected on us. This is the reason act as a in a men act in a reason and he won't harm others. This is influenced by glorious revolution. It's a balance. Okay. If a man has a passions, he also has a reason. Because a passionate has a reason. It is because of reason man takes care of others' interest and in self-interest and other important. This enlightened self-interest. Okay, accepted. But the state of nature is state of war in Hobbes. But what is Locke saying? The state of nature is not a state of war. It's a peace, goodwill, and mutual assistance. They are cooperating each other. They are behaving with goodwill and maintaining the peace to secure themselves to take care of others. The same thing doing by the others also. Because we have life, liberty, and property. What is the reason for the contract? Why? If man has a reason, then why should he is going to social contract? The peace and goodwill are prevailing, but there is no guarantee that it will prevail forever. For the assurance, for the safety. If man has a reason, he also has a passions. He may act with may act with the passions will disturb the peace. The better to convert goodwill into a legally forcible contract. Certain inconveniences in nature will also be the reason for that to enter in the contract. Not only disturbances, but there will be certain because we want the common authority. We don't have law, so man is giving three rights, which is try to make laws, try to execute laws, try to educate, what is judiciary. This is a three separation of powers which is transferring to the state in the form of government. Locke is proposing to form the government instead of a state. Since law will vary inconvenient, each person judging in his own case is not reasonable. Law may be varied to person, to area. It is not possible to judging him alone. There are inconvenience, which is there's no assurance of goodwill, no common authority to ensure fair education. So for this purpose, no assurance of goodwill, no common authority to ensure their fair education. For this reason, man has established a government by transferring his three rights. Process of contract. How? If Hobbes has given the single contract, man becomes social and political. At a time, he has given the two contracts log. The state of nature is not as to antisocial. The state of nature is not antisocial. The first contract is what is the first contract? He entered by the first contract entered with the formation of civil society. It's different from the state and the family. The civil society is a form of society in which the state of nature there is no form of contract to respect each other's right. If there is no contract, it's like the they left on each other's reason. By contract, we're giving the recognition to the each other's rights. What is we're doing? We're giving the recognition to each other's rights. The second contract is for people have formed a government. The first contract people have formed the civil society. In the second contract people have formed the government. Hobbes created a state, but the Locke created the government. What the Locke? How government created? By three laws, making executive, adjudicate, common agencies with three branches called the government. The Constitution. There is theory of separation of power. Montesquieu in his book Constitution of Liberty. The three branches separated, which is called as the theory of separation of powers. Montesquieu in his book has given the Constitution of Liberty. Describe how people they select according to the law. Now we created a government. Now who is in the government? Law proposes the representative government. In India, even we are following the representative government. The government by consent. This is by voting. The people will vote for the government. There is two types of consent, which is explicit. Whoever the wins the majority, when is implicit, indirectly they are supporting, but they are not voted for the party, but indirectly they are supporting. The scope of government, there is a limited government and the minimal government. Limited government means the powers are limited because man has the life, liberty, property. So minimal government because it functions on the basis of the government. People has only transferred three rights. What is the nature of power of government? No, there are no original power to government, only delegated powers. All original powers belongs to people. No government delegates of people, so cannot act against the will of the people. Government cannot act against the will of people because government is a trustee, the people of trustees. If government, mm, what can if government acts against the people has absolute right to the revolt against the government. But the revolt, which is peaceful, there is a set of changing the ruling government. Government cannot make laws to take away life, liberty, property, as people are not transferred these rights. According to the Hobbes, law, no law, no liberty. What he is saying, no law, no liberty. Men of reason teaches man not to harm others. The Lockean say, even if we consider the case of A.K. Gopalan case, in the Menaka Gandhi case, SC recognizes the due process of law and struck down the A.K. Gopalan case. Okay. No law, no liberty. We are going to discuss this statement. There are laws which are natural laws, yeah, which are positive laws, which are customary laws. The state of nature, man enjoying liberty because of the presence of the natural law. The reason that teaches man not to harm because he has to secure his life, liberty, and property. The state of nature, according in the law, says the peace, goodwill, and mutual assistance. Man entered into the contract with some inconveniences, which he created the limited state. Even in the presence of the state, man has a liberty, as has a given only three rights. The government cannot take his laws, cannot make his laws on the life, liberty, and property. The law of the state remains below law of nature because such a law will not pass with the due process law. The liberty is protected by the due process of law. Thus the natural laws. In the absence of due process of law, there is no liberty. The Lockean view is more desirable due to its balanced approach to the human nature against the pessimistic view of the human nature by Hobbes. Because what Hobbes is saying, man has reason, but man can't able to control their appetite. But according to the laws, men of a passion will always limit or control the appetite, and he acts according to will of the society. Even Aristotle has given the golden mean. Aristotle, father of politics, has isolated the principle of golden mean. If Hobbes is one extreme anarchist, and other liberals propose a golden mean. Man has both passions and reason. In the interest of the freedom, these interests are desirable. The theory of rights, which is natural rights, we have seen the fundamental to these natural rights that does not surround all its rights. Most important is right to property because without right to property, there is no meaning to right to life and right to liberty. There are man property, life and liberty, and not state's property. He's emphasizing on the property. State has no absolute right on property. Why right to property is most important? Utilitarian purpose. The purpose of life is to lead a happy life. Only the property gives is a source of happiness. So God also wants to enjoy life as He created apple when to eat, to drink, not to sacrifice. Absolute right to property. The philosophy of Ajivika talks about um, the God has given this environment, the nature, resources to enjoy the man. Origin of private property. How the private property has initially, even the time of Aristotle, initially there will be a common property. Now, then what happened? The common property cannot remain so long. Why? What is the capitalist mentality? The person who is hardworking and rational became a owner of the property. The person who is laziness, hmm, quarrelsome, remained a tool. According to the law, man absolute right over the product of his labor, his slave, man's responsibility. Even the labor of his horse and slave are his property. The scope of state authority with respect to right to property. State has no authority to interfere in man's right to property. State has no authority to interfere in man's right to property. No, not have. The only purpose of which man has created a commonwealth is the protection of the property. He created the state for the creation of the property. You are taking the property. How is going to happen? The state created to protect the property itself, not to limit the ownership. Okay. What type of state law justifies? State justifies is a night watchman or police state. It's a limited state. He has given the three limitations. One, labor limitation, which is the product, the property product of one's own labor and a horse or slave, but not by means of fraud or force. The spoil is limitation. According to the laws, okay, laws justifies these properties. According to the law, the person should not destroy his property or someone else's property. For example, if we take the um, When Saddam Hussein has, when America has fired and killed Saddam Hussein, the America has shown the reason that Saddam Hussein is spoiling the natural resources which are utilized by everyone. This is the reason by there are this is the reason given by the USA to kill the Saddam Hussein. The person shall not deprive others from owning property. You should not deprive others even from owning the property. Labor limitations, spoilage limitation, you should not deprive others. A perspective of capital class. What is the perspective of absolute right to property they want? But there is a criticism. Like a person, this is the reason we have criticized the so-called scholar of Locke as a scholar of positive individualism in the scholar of bourgeois class because it's been absolute property, absolute security. Hobbes has given the absolute sovereignty to the state and absolute security. He's given the security. He's talking Locke talking absolute property. Locke on toleration. What the Locke has said on toleration. The concerning toleration that views on the policy of the state authority with respect to the religion of if you consider Hobbes absolute power of state over religion. But for Locke does not agree with Hobbes' view. He is given the freedom of conscience. Even Indian Constitution Article 25, there is an absolute freedom of conscience. Okay, Article 25. He has the policy of toleration that towards all religions for the sake of unity. They don't want to convert with. Don't try to convert with. What Locke is saying on toleration, you should tolerate others' religion for the unity. He is mainly focusing on unity in diversity. Except atheists. He didn't believe in atheists. They do not believe in God, so can't be trusted. We should not trust the atheists. No one will trust the contract entered by atheists. Contracts belong to religious persons, you just know that. Atheist. On revolution. What is Locke is saying? There should be peaceful revolution. The peaceful constitutional changes in the set of people who are in government. He is from glorious revolution. So the reason of for revolution proposal government does not act according to the will of trust. If government does not act according to the will of trustees, there should be revolution. If the executives do not allow the legislature to function, if the executive does not implement, executive implement करते नहीं legislature allow करने हैं तो we should go for revolution. Government puts people under the foreign rule should go for revolution, but we didn't have given that right. End of law is not to abolish, but preserve and enlarge freedom. If we ending the law, it not means that we are abolishing it. We are giving preserving the freedom. The law was individualist out and out. He supported the night watchman state, its minimum functions, the natural rights because is a reason the state of nature will be good, will peace and mutual assistance. It is a reason to guide. It did not harm others. The state of nature is inconvenienced due to the lack of central authority. They come to the social contract by giving the three rights. The government now the government formation of government is a trust. It acts as trust to the trustees of as a people. He has given the right to revolt, which is a commonwealth created to preserve the property of a man. It cannot take away. As a law is against the due process of law because when men did not transfer the right of property, the Hobbes, the greatest individualist. If we consider Hobbes as greatest individualist, Locke considers individuals out and out because he remains as an individual itself. The Locke is considering as an individual out and out. The two types of individualists, which is a normative which is owned by the hard work, which is a procedural man creates a state to property. Now, on other hand, locke is neither absolute assumption nor in conclusion that Hobbes as a absolutist. Now we consider that he started with the individualist, he ended even with the individual itself. There's a this is a criticism Mac that Hobbes even as a scholar of possessive individualism, not only Hobbes, even the Locke also. Why he is considered father of liberalism? Because he has proposed the liberty, absolute. He has proposed liberty to the people itself. He considered limiting the state. He given the peaceful revolution. He is given the due process of law. It's a theory of tolerance. Now there is a question. The comment and assassin of Sal's Laslet that Philemon and not Hobbes was the main antagonist of law. Now the Philemon who is criticized the Locke's social contract. Now Hobbes is not against the Locke. Philemon is against the Locke. The Philemon and Hobbes both support absolute state. Locke critic of absolute, but Locke is a critic of absolute. He is proposed of night watchman state. Now there is a matter of debate whether Philemon are against the Locke or antagonist Locke or Hobbes. There is one school of thought which says that Hobbes has given the absolute state on basis of social contract. Okay, but assume that Locke avoided the Hobbes controversies. Hobbes given the social contract, but he has given absolute state, but Locke avoided it. In the second school of thought, which Filmer criticized social theory, it explicitly criticized the first theory of on civil society. Huh? The debate which remains inconclusive, whether which who is the main antagonist. The both scholars belongs to bourgeois class. The Filmer even belongs to scholar of feudal classes. He is a utilitarian, both is in a social contract. Believe in social contract. Okay. Now we are going to end this session from here.